Jamie on the beat, boy. Jamie on the beat, boy. Jamie on the beat, boy.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the GSN Sports Network podcast. I'm your host, John J. II, here on a Tuesday, the 5th of March, 2024. Thank you so much for joining us. We got a hell of a show for you guys in store tonight. Got a lot of sports to talk about. We're approaching another sports eclipse. It's coming. The spring weather is coming. Listen, the groundhog saw his shadow. And we're seeing the effects. We're seeing spring come early. Winter is not gone yet by any stretch of the word. Winter is not gone yet, but we're seeing glimpses of spring. It's getting warm here in mid-Michigan. We're happy about it. And you know what that means? That means March Madness is on its way. And we got to talk about the Final Four. It's going to Phoenix this year. We're watching some Big Ten basketball. Illinois and the Fighting Illini facing off against the Purdue Boilermakers right now. It's a nail biter. If you're not watching it, tune into it. Check it out. And we just got to look at the AP poll picture. I know we don't like the AP polls, but it's really all we have to go off of. When it comes to college basketball, when we're talking about the statistics, this is all we have. And it's just the reality of the situation. So we got Houston sitting at the number one spot, 26-3 in the Big 12. They face off against UCF. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., we got UConn at number 2, the reigning champs. They're up one spot. And Purdue and the Boilermakers, depending on what happens tonight, this could be a determining game for them. They're sitting at the number 3 spot as they face and battle Illinois right now, a very tough Illinois team. So we'll see how that really changes things. It's going to change things in the AP polls. It's also going to change things in the Big Ten standings, as both of them have a likely right to the Big Ten championship. So that's going to be a nail biter going into the dying embers, which they're in right now. So we'll see how that one pans out. Sitting at number 4, we got Tennessee and the Volunteers sitting at 23-6. They face off against South Carolina tomorrow at 7. Number 5 is Arizona at 23-6. The Cyclones of Iowa State sit at number 6 at 23-6. Also, they face BYU tomorrow. A lot of big games coming up. And some we're going to talk about here later on is there's a lot of, hype going around the sports world right now. And we can't talk about everything because during the eclipse time, there's a lot of sports happening. There's a lot of things going on. So it's just impossible to talk about everything that's going on. A lot of things are going on in the shadows. A lot of things are lurking in the background that might relate to a sport that's in its off season right now. So we can't really get too caught up in that. We got to deal with the here and now. And that's the toughest thing about being in this business, being in the conversation about talking, relating to sports, all kinds of sports, every different area and facet of the sports world. You got to talk about the here and now. Number 7, North Carolina and the Tar Heels at 23-6. Are they going to come back? Are they going to do what they have to do? They have a veteran team. Are they going to do what they have to do? They got Notre Dame tonight at 7. That one's probably wrapping up as well, but that could also determine where they end up. Sitting at the 7th spot, likely a 2-3 seed going into March Madness. Marquette at number 8, Duke at number 9, Creighton at 10, Baylor at 11, Illinois sitting at the 12th spot. So you got a top 12 matchup tonight in the Big Ten happening right now. So we'll see how that one pans out. I'm really excited to see how that one pans out because that's going to paint the picture for the Big Ten going towards the tournament. Auburn at 13, making a splash. Kansas sitting down there at 14, which you don't really get to see them at quite a bit. Got a big game against Kansas State in-state rivalry tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Sitting at 15, Kentucky. 16, Alabama. South Carolina at 17, Washington State at 18, Gonzaga at 19. Sit at 24-6 at the 19th spot. Usually the Zags get a little bit more leeway. They get a little bit more wiggle room when it comes to the standings, especially the AP poll. The AP polls like Gonzaga. But for them to sit there with 6 losses in the West Coast Conference, they're not looking too good because they should be, quote unquote, should be dominating that conference. They shouldn't be sitting at that position, even though they're up 4 spots since the last rankings came out. 20, BYU, Brigham Young University at 21-8 in the Big 12. San Diego State, we all know they faced off against UConn in the final game last year at the 21 spot, sitting at 22-7 in the Mountain West. They will play UNLV, the University of Las Vegas. They will play them tonight at 11 p.m. Eastern time. Utah State at 22, St. Mary's at 23, South Florida, USF at 24, Dayton at 25 to wrap it up. So there's a lot of names, a lot of teams that you don't see in there that might have a decent ranking. But the thing is, there's so many teams that are in the conversation, and something that the AP polls have done a hell of a job at is incorporate many more teams into who can qualify and who can be in the conversation when it comes to the AP polls. And that's why you see teams like St. Mary's. That's why you see teams like Dayton, San Diego State, teams that have had the opportunity to make a splash in the tournament, that have won big games against big teams in the big dance. And you see them making a splash in the AP polls. That's how it should be. It should be a level playing field. Yes, you're going to have American Athletic Conference teams. You're going to have Atlantic 10 teams in there. Mountain West obviously is taking up a lot of spots in the AP polls, but you're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of that, but we like to see it. We like to see the broad representation of the teams that are making up college basketball itself. So take that into account. Take it all with a grain of salt. But a lot of games to be played. Not a lot of games for each team to be played. We're looking at the last, 2-3 games per team before we see Selection Sunday and we see where teams line up. We're going to talk about very briefly about my Michigan State Spartans. I put out very quickly I put a lot of thought into it. I thought I put a lot of thought into it. 78.2% before the Purdue game for Michigan State to make the tournament. Now, they're projected to be a 9 seed. And they played good against Purdue, and they did a hell of a job. I thought they did good, and that was one of the only losses that I saw the Michigan State Spartans take and incur that I was expecting them to have. They had a fighting chance. They're playing in a hostile environment at Purdue. Matt Painter is, elated. He feels good. He likes where his team's at. But at the same time, Tom Izzo doesn't think his team is where it needs to be. And he might play it off like he thinks they are in a place where they need to be, but they have a lot of work to do, and they have to be a lot better in a lot better position than they are at this point in the season. And it's just not good enough. I don't think they have a chance to make a run. I really don't. I think they're one of the first teams out if they make the tournament. And that's just how they're playing right now. Regardless of how they played in the Purdue game, they got a really tough game tomorrow against Northwestern, a very poised Northwestern team that really has the right to go on and win it all in the Big Ten. So we'll see what happens there. How do they fare against Northwestern? That'll determine a lot of things, win or lose. I just want to see where the team's at. I want to see how players are shooting. I want to see how Malik Hall is playing alongside AJ Hogard, how Tyson Walker is basically controlling the entire team, the one-man band, how Xavier Booker is going to be playing that 5 spot. How many minutes does he have? How hard does he need to play? How many threes does he have to hit before he is getting significant minutes for the Michigan State Spartans? I don't know. I don't know the answers to those questions. I wish I did. I wish I could tap inside of Tom Izzo's head and really get the answers to those questions, but I just don't have those answers. I don't have the intel to have those answers, to have those types of breakthroughs, but I wish I did. I wish I did. And it's all going to come out in the wash at some point. So we don't have to worry about it. Not too much time needs to pass before we're, at the tournament where Michigan State is at, wherever they're at, whether they make the tournament or not. Depending on, they could be the first team out, but in all reality, they could be the first team out before they're even in. So they have to finish strong. They have to at least compete. If they're not winning these final games, they're going to have to make a splash in the Big Ten tournament. That goes without saying. But they're going to have to compete. They're going to have to lose these games if they're must-lose games, which I mean, I don't want to say any game's a must-lose game, but a potential loss, an acceptable loss, like to a Purdue or even to a Northwestern. It's unfortunate you have these games basically wrapping up your season with in-conference play, but that's just how the cards fall, and that's how good these teams are. We knew they were good. We knew they were good, and when they made the schedules, they knew they were good too. So they knew what they were doing. They were going to put Michigan State to the test, and that's exactly what they're doing. So we'll have to see what happens. A lot to unfold here in the next couple days and the next few weeks. Real quick, we'll just look at the Big Ten men's basketball standings. Purdue sitting at number 1 spot, Illinois at number 2, Northwestern at 3. So that's why tonight is such a big game with Purdue and the Fighting Illini. Who is going to win? Who is going to basically, it's coming down to the conference, conference home record, really, which Purdue is 9-0, Illinois is 8-1. And you got to really look at a lot of those things. Sitting at 13-5 is Illinois, 15-3 is Purdue, 11-7 is Northwestern, which I don't know how they get 7 in-conference losses. That just blows my mind. Who is beating Northwestern? It's getting crazy. We're seeing a lot of these things take place. So Purdue at 1, Illinois at 2, Northwestern at 3, Nebraska at 4, Wisconsin at 5, Iowa at 6, Minnesota at 7, and Michigan State at 8, so on and so forth. Irrelevancy follows that. So who's going to win? No one can tell. It's going to come down to, and we've seen Purdue leave. We've seen them leave the tournament in the first round last year of the Big Dance. So do they have potential to lose? Of course they do. Does Zach Edey have the potential to be dominated in the paint? Of course he does. So it's who comes to play, who uses the right techniques down low with Zach Edey. It's tough that has to be such its own aspect of beating the Purdue Boilermakers, but it is. We're dealing with that. And they have been dealing with it. So he's been looked at as an anomaly. You see Malik Hall, 6'9", Malik Hall, by the way, basically struggle in the paint to defend this guy. He does not have the proper tools to defend Zach Edey without fouling him. And you could see the confusion on his face when it's just like, he almost looks over at his bench. He's looking at his guys like, what the hell am I supposed to do against this guy? How do I defend this man inside the paint? And the question has yet to be answered. You've seen teams do it effectively, but majority of teams have not. Either they don't have the personnel, they don't have the players that can defend a 7-foot-plus offensive player like Zach Edey, that he was made in the lab. You can't see that take place, and you can't see him be easily defended. It's just not going to happen. But you've seen it done effectively in the past, so we know it's possible. We do. We know it's possible. Moving on. We got to talk about the NHL. The NHL standings. the playoff picture, the wild card standings 23-24. It's getting intense. It's getting interesting. Our Detroit Red Wings, and this is a Detroit team. I know we got Tigers coming up. We got opening day on its way. Major League Baseball is back. But let's not put the cart before the horse. We got to talk about NHL. We got to talk about our Detroit Red Wings. The winged wheel. The winged wheel is in the conversation yet again. And they're sitting at number one spot in the wild card, sitting at number 4 in the Eastern Conference, sitting in the Atlantic Division, sitting at the number 4 spot, right behind the Toronto Maple Leafs, which they're not playing too good right now. So that 3 spot in the Eastern Conference Atlantic Division is looking very likely for the Detroit Red Wings. Couple bad losses, but they're looking really good. They're coming off of a big 6-game win streak, which we're looking at. You're looking at some good wins, some really good wins, dominating wins against really good teams. With the Tampa Bay Lightning, they got a couple Stanley Cups under their belt in recent history. They're sitting in the number 2 spot in the wild card conversation. Looking at the Atlantic Division itself, Florida Panthers at 1, Boston Bruins at 2, and Toronto Maple Leafs at 3. Florida Panthers coming off a big win against the number 1 team in the Metropolitan Division, the New York Rangers. Behind them is the Carolina Hurricanes, and behind them is the Philadelphia Flyers. So a lot in the conversation. We're ramping up our NHL watching. We're watching a lot of NHL. We're watching a lot of hockey games because we're looking at, the playoffs begin April 17th, which we're a little over a month away. But this is where the formative games happen. This is where the important games take place. And this is where games have to be won. They have to be won because you're securing position. Teams that are kind of in the hunt, the Islanders sitting at 3 in the wild card, the Washington Capitals sitting at number 4 in the wild card, the Devils, the Penguins, the Sabres, the Canadiens, and the Senators. All these teams that are in the wild card conversation in the top 10, going all the way down to the Columbus Blue Jackets, which has been playing hellishly great hockey, beating the Vegas Golden Knights last night in just a hell of a victory. The reigning champs, the Stanley Cup champions. Getting a big win, that's going to move you up in the rankings, even though you might have had some bad losses. Moving down to the Western Conference, the Winnipeg Jets, the Dallas Stars, and the Colorado Avalanche make up the top 3. In the Pacific, the Vancouver Canucks, Edmonton Oilers, and VGK wrapping up the top 3 in the Pacific. In the wild card conversation for the Western Conference, you got the LA Kings and the Nashville Predators bringing up the 3 spot. St. Louis Blues, Calgary Flames, and the Seattle Kraken. Watched a great game between the Kraken and the Flames last night. The Kraken just got it done. They just got it done. McCann is a force to be reckoned with. And we have to talk about this guy right here. And I was talking to my buddy Gage about this earlier today. We were talking earlier today about this. And this is very important news that we have to talk about. Matt Rempe. The crowds are chanting Rempe. He fought the veteran bruiser, Ryan Reeves of the Toronto Maple Leafs, with just under 6 minutes left in the third. This happened a couple days ago. But they basically had a soiree. And the referees, it was almost like this was written in the script of this game. Because you're looking at a 21-year-old rookie that is basically, running the gambit. He's only been in the league for a couple weeks. And he wants to be a bruiser. He's coming into this fight, mind you, with 2 black eyes. And he's trying to really prove himself. He's trying to make himself be a staple in the National Hockey League early as a fighter. And Ryan Reeves said it himself after the game in a press conference. Ryan Reeves, the veteran, he's 37 years old, okay, fighting a 21-year-old. And now, mind you, Matt Rempe is a 6'7" kid that is towering over Ryan Reeves. Ryan Reeves said, this guy is going to be a menace. He's going to be a force to be reckoned with in the NHL going forward. Yeah, he's a young guy. Yeah, he likes to fight. And yeah, even Ryan Reeves fed him some nice haymakers in their soiree in the middle of the ice with just under 6 minutes to go in that third period, where Toronto was up a goal. Okay. And listen, the Rangers lost a bad game last night to the Florida Panthers. But listen, nevertheless, these guys are fighting. These guys, and fighting is a part of hockey. Okay, for those people that say, oh, fighting is a part of hockey. This is where I think it could be an issue. When you're talking about the formative stages, yes, you're sitting at the number one spot in the Metropolitan, but don't get too caught up. Don't get too big for your britches when it comes to fighting and the novelty of it and the hype around it. Yes, it embodies the sport of hockey, which we know and love, and we love to watch at this time of year. But don't get too caught up in that. Let it organically form, which I think in this case it may have. But don't get too caught up in the facade of, okay, I got to get in a fight every game. That is my MO. I have to make it happen. Let it happen organically. It can happen organically enough. Listen, if someone checks your goalie or if they, get into the crease, get a little too close to your goalie, they crash the boards, whatever, might cross-check your guy without him looking. Yeah, sure, that's fine. Pile on the guy. But don't get caught up in that moment too much and in moments where it doesn't matter when you have a chance to maybe sacrifice the game. And that's what he's going to learn in time. He's going to learn that with experience. But I love what I'm seeing from this Matt Rempe kid, and he's going to be a hell of an asset for the New York Rangers or wherever he winds up in the coming years. But they have a chance. The Rangers have a chance to make a splash this year. I don't want to see them mess it up. I like the New York Rangers. I like them a lot. Other than the Wings, they're one of my favorite teams in the NHL. And I like Calgary too. I didn't like to see them lose last night to the Kraken as they got their 100th win last night. But listen, the Kraken's a hell of a team. They're a force to be reckoned with too. There's a lot of teams that are in the conversation that have high potential. They might not be in the top 5 in either the wild card or their respected divisions in their conferences, but they have a potential and they have enough time where you're stacking the games up leading up to April 17th. And you're looking at a lot of potential to move forward in the coming weeks. And you're looking at just about a month and a couple weeks before the playoff conversation begins. So you have those formative games where it's exciting to watch hockey right now because these games matter. These games play a role in where they wind up going into the playoffs. So a lot to talk about, a lot to look forward to, especially in regards to the NHL and hockey. So if you're not a hockey person, trust me, take my word for it. Sit your ass down on your couch, turn on hockey. If you got ESPN Plus, turn some hockey on, watch it. Bally Sports, you can watch some Detroit Red Wings, watch the wing wheel, watch the wing wheel jersey. Arguably the best logo in sports is a winged wheel. And anybody that wants to contest that, be my guest. Be my guest. Moving on. We got to talk about the PGA Tour. And there's a reason I don't have the Live Golf logo right here. And that is because we don't give a shit about Live. Live, in my opinion, is out of the conversation. Yes, it's still sports. Yes, it's still golf. But I have no time for it. Like I said before, I have too much sports to talk about. I have a lot of things to cover. We're talking about an eclipse coming into the spring of 24. We got a lot of college basketball to talk about. We got a lot of golf to talk about. We got NHL hockey to talk about. We got Major League Baseball on the horizon. There's a lot of better things to talk about than Live, okay? And I was honestly sickened when I saw this. I saw the World Golf Rankings, and I saw none other than Jon Rahm at the number 3 spot in the official World Golf Rankings. So it's just one of those things where you see him, you see his name, and you see the potential that he had, and you see Liv, you see Greg Norman, and the Saudi Arabians throw tons of money at this guy, and you see him. And before that, he's like, you know what? I'm gonna prove my allegiance, and props to the guys that have had bags thrown at him. Props to those guys. But you've seen him turn down those bags with grace. You've seen him say, hey, listen, I'm here for the legacy. I'm here for the tradition. And I'm going to turn those bags down. Because I don't need the money. I'm already a millionaire. I'm already a hell of a golfer. I'm making strides. I'm going to be making history here in the PGA Tour. And likely going to be in the running for majors coming up. Such as the Masters, which is coming up here in a couple weeks. Which we're excited about. We're excited about it. So obviously you got the Arnold Palmer Classic at Bay Hill, March 7th to the 10th. So that's coming up next. Up next after that, you got the Players of the Stadium course, March 14th through the 17th. Just giving you a little bit of snapshot here. After that, you got the Valspar Championship at Copperhead from March 21st to the 24th. Then you got the Houston Open at Memorial Park from March 28th to the 31st. From there, you go over to TPC San Antonio where you play the Valero Texas Open on April 4th through the 7th. And then you got the big one. You got the Masters at Augusta National, which John Rahm's going to be in attendance. We know he will. And that's the important thing to note here. And in relation to Live Golf. And that's where we make the connection. Before we get into odds and who has the potential to win it all, based on the World Golf Rankings, because I don't know if you guys knew this, but Vegas looks at the World Golf Rankings to make their odds. They do. They do. That's what they do. That's what they get paid to do. And they're getting paid with your money, too. I don't know if you know that, but they're getting paid with your money. Regardless, these Live Golf players are permitted. They're permitted, even though, the merger and everything like that. I haven't heard a lot on the merger with the PGA and Live either, by the way. They still seem like two separate entities to me. But they are permitted because all the majors, are not licensed by the PGA Tour, by that logo you see on your screen. They are not licensed. They are not regulated by the PGA Tour. So because they're like that, they're essentially opens. They're opens. And that really solidifies the term open because anybody and everybody can play in it, regardless of PGA status, anything. You don't even have to be a PGA Tour player to play at Augusta. If you get an invite, you're playing. They're all separately ran. They're all ran on their own by their owners and things like that. So we're looking at, Scotty Scheffler. He's going to be in the conversation. McIlroy, he's going to be looking to make a splash. Victor Hovland is going to make a splash as well. Brian Harman, Xander Schauffele, Patrick Cantlay. These names are starting to ring a bell a little bit. So you're looking at these guys, Wyndham Clark, Max Homa. Just to go over the official World Golf Rankings. Number 1, Scotty Scheffler. 2, Rory McIlroy. 3, Jon Rahm. 4, Victor Hovland. 5, Xander. 6, Patrick Cantlay. 7, Wyndham Clark. 8, Max Homa. 9, Matt Fitzpatrick. And 10, Brian Harman, coming off a victory earlier, actually last year, to add to his resume. So let's just talk about Bay Hill. Let's talk about Bay Hill real quick. Bay Hill, Scheffler enters this week's favorite at 6-1. And surprise, surprise, Scheffler is also the world number 1. So he's at 6-1, followed by Rory McIlroy at 17-2 odds, Hovland at 12-1, and Xander 14-1, with Cantlay bringing up the rear at 16-1. And then Kurt Kitayama is coming back to defend his title at Bay Hill for the Arnold Palmer Classic, but he sits at 80-1. So will he defend his title? Probably not. Probably not, but he is on the radar. He's on the radar as a long shot at 80-1. So if you like those odds, maybe throw $5 on it and see where the wind flies. But a lot heating up for PGA Tour as well. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. There's a lot happening. There's a lot going on in the world of sports. And not only that, but in the world of golf as well. Keep them two separate. Live Golf is here. PGA Tour is here. It's still that way. I think it'll always be that way. I've yet to be contested when I have said, and when I have posed the comment, that I don't think Live and PGA will ever see eye to eye. And the worst thing that can happen, and I'm going to have Sobo here on the show here in the next week or so. We're going to talk about this again, and it's a very common topic with Sobo and I. He knows that. We talk about it all the time. When we do talk, it's in relation to golf somehow. But Live always somehow comes into the conversation, whether we want it to or not. I don't think they'll ever have a very happy marriage of the two because their ideals are so far apart. Okay? The worst thing that can happen, let me finish that statement before I get ahead of myself. The worst thing that can happen is the PGA Tour. The PGA Tour cannot become subservient. They cannot be bought out. Because if they sacrifice themselves and they become the sacrificial lamb to then say, here, take the keys Take the legacy, take the tradition, take it all on a silver platter, and you can have it. Okay? Just name your price. We'll name our price. That will be the end of golf. It'll be like NIL in college sports. That is becoming the end of college sports. And you're seeing that on headlines. You're seeing coaches talk about it. You're seeing coaches wish that things were different, that things are like they used to be. They wish they were like that. So having certain things be bought out or have the potential to be bought, it's unfortunate. We've seen it happen enough with enough PGA Tour players where it's become a travesty, and we don't want to see it happen if we can help it. So that's the 2 cents that I have in that regard. Finally, talk about some gin gaming stuff. I got to talk about FC24. This is an update that I have, and it's a personal update. It's in regards to my feelings towards the game. I just have to accept, and I've seen some video of the game being played in its earlier stages, more or less closer to when it just came out. And I see a game that is a lot more fast-paced. I see a game that is a lot more fluent. It actually looks like soccer, how it should be played. And I have to just come to the realization when the game is playing fine, when it's playing fluently, I have to accept that the game as EA wants it to be is a game that is slower, a game that is more every move, every touch is more enhanced, everything is more emphasized to the point of redundancy, to the point where that's what the game has become. And if you get used to that mentality, you get used to that dynamic, you can almost have fun again at it. You can almost have fun again at it. But if you accept that that's where the game is at, you can adjust, you can adapt to that. So do I think the game is as good as it was at its release, or even as good or amounting to anything close to what the game was in previous iterations, i.e. FIFA 23, going back to the golden era of FIFA 15 through 17 through 19? And mind you, I never got into Ultimate Team. I never did. For all my FIFA guys out there and gals, I never got into Ultimate Team. I never had the time investment. I play seasons. I play online friendlies. So I play with teams that are already in existence. So because of that, I take the game with a grain of salt. I play my game of FIFA when I play. And I play with the teams that I have. I play with the attributes that I'm given with any given team, just as every other team does that plays soccer in real life. So if you can adjust and you can adapt to that, and I hate to call it this, the crap factor. If you can adjust to the crap factor, then by all means, you should have fun with this game. And you're still going to experience inconsistent gameplay where things are not the same from one game to the next. But if you can play it, you can manage it. And if you can somehow feel that the opponent is dealing with something similar to that you're dealing with, then it can become fun again. I think that they should revert and not nerf the mechanics, not overemphasize certain touches and moves. I think they should do that. And really, for everybody that doesn't play FIFA or doesn't know what I'm talking about, play the game. Play the game. Or ask somebody that does play the game. They will know what I'm talking about. They'll be able to emulate and hopefully reflect what I'm talking about right now. But that's my TED Talk. That's my rant on that. Finally, before we get too much into the weeds here, we got to plug the GSNC 5. GSN Challenge 5, benefiting the Thomas Smith Memorial Foundation, is taking place June 8th, 2024 at Briar Ridge Golf Course. Be sure to join, register today. $90 a person. That promotion is going on from now until the end of March. So get signed up. The link to register will be in the link or in the bottom of this description, in this podcast at the bottom in the description. Got fumble over my words there a little bit. It'll be in the bottom of this podcast. So get registered, get your party together, and compete for the jackets for glory coming this June 8th. The week before Father's Day, usually it's the weekend of Father's Day. So a week before that, hoping for some good weather like we usually get towards the mid-June season, midsummer. It's just a great event. for a great cause. Come out and join the fun June 8th, 2024 at Briar Ridge Golf Course. We love to see you there, and we hope to see you there. Come out and compete. Bring your best game. Bring your best game. A new format is coming to the event this year as far as, payouts and recognition for places. So that will be released in a subsequent podcast as we get closer to the event date. But we have a couple months. We're about 3 months out right now. So get registered, get your teammates, get your teammate together and do some game planning. Maybe you can do some preparation before the event takes place. So the GSN C5 coming this June. Cool. Well, I hope you guys got a little bit out of that today. I had a little bit of a rant. I got a little bit into the weeds. I got a little bit fired up, but I don't think that's anything straying too far away from the norm. That's usually how I am. I think I kept it pretty PC today, actually, compared to how I act in some other shows. But take it or leave it. Give me your thoughts. Give me your suggestions as far as anything we talked about today. What teams have a threat to be made going towards the Final Four in March Madness? Who has the best chance to win the Big Ten tournament in college basketball for the Big Ten Conference? FC 24, how do you feel about the game? Do you like it? Do you hate it? PGA Tour, do you like where it's at? Who has the best chance to win the Masters here in a month's time? Who has the best chance to win the Bay Hill? Who are you taking odds-wise? And what are your best tips for people betting on golf? Because that's something that is really not talked about too much. How do you look at a golfer from 1 week to the next, or even one day to the next, and say, I like this guy. I like this guy to win. Okay. For me, I gotta see round one. I gotta see how are players playing in round one. And sure, you're gonna have your Matsuyamas that come out and play out of their mind on Sunday. You're gonna have that. You can't prepare for that. You can't assume that's gonna happen. You can't assume they're gonna play out of their ass and just, dominate the field, shoot 9, 10 under in the final round. You can't assume that. You can't prepare for that. So what are your techniques? What are your strategies? Oh my gosh, I almost got ahead of myself. We got to talk about one more thing. UFC 299. UFC 299 is O'Malley and Vera. Number two. O'Malley and Vera 2. Sean O'Malley, his only loss. He sits at 17-1. He seeks to avenge his one and only loss in the UFC against Vera. Okay. And his first loss happened back on April 15th of 2020 in UFC 252. This was the only loss that happened for Sean O'Malley, Sugar Sean. And Sugar Sean is one of those fighters that I tend to watch quite a bit. And I have a fun time watching Sugar Sean just because of his strategy of fighting. So this is going to be a hell of a vengeful match for Sugar Sean. He's coming in at minus 218 with the Vegas odds, and that is subject to change. We got a lot of fights coming in the prelims. The prelims and early prelims start at 6 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll go all the way till, the time, right around 1:30 a.m. Eastern on Sunday. On pay-per-view, got to check it out. You got to watch this fight. UFC 299, O'Malley and Vera 2. It's going to be a hell of a fight. I'm looking forward to it. I love these main events. They've been on fire. Volkanovski took a big L last main event, last UFC 298. And that was tough to watch. I had Volkanovski winning. Didn't pan out that way. Things, mistakes were made. I'll just say that. But this one, new time, new opportunities. Sugar Sean in the colorful hair. He's coming back for more against Vera. So let's see what happens. Let's prepare for the best. Sugar Sean needs his revenge, and we're prepared for that. I'll leave it at that, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to the GSN Podcast. Be sure to check us out on social media at Gin Sports Network on Instagram, at Gin Pros on Twitter, and check us out from our website, ginsportsnetwork.com. And all of our information can also be found on our parent site, ginpros.org. So we'll be seeing you guys there. Find us on the social media waves. Get a hold of us. Find a way. There's plenty of avenues. And we'll see you guys here next time on the GSN. But for now, I'm John J. II here with the Gin Sports Network. Have a great night.